The sound always starts from the opposite side. First, an almost innocent rustling. Then, footsteps. And then, your name, pronounced in the way only someone very close would know how to say. The rules are simple. Never look, never answer, and never, ever enter the cornfield. But when a series of disappearances shakes the small town of Coldcreek, someone decides to break the silence, and the cornfield responds. Nathan Blake used to say that the silence of the countryside was a type of sound that moves without making a noise. It was his poetic way of explaining what was heard in the middle of a cornfield at night. Not exactly the wind, nor the crickets, but something between the two, like a whisper from the earth itself. The last time he was seen alive was August 12, 2006, on his farm in Custer County, Nebraska. Since then, no one has entered that cornfield alone. The one telling this story is Eleanor Blake, Nathan's sister. She speaks like someone who never wanted to return, like someone who fled her rural childhood to try and forget something she couldn't name. The story begins with her forced return to the farm after her brother's disappearance. In her suitcase, clothes, in her mind, doubts. But it's when she opens one of the forgotten boxes in the basement that the narrative truly begins. A box filled with tapes, recordings, and a notebook with the inscription, "If you are hearing this, you've already heard the call." The first tape reveals Nathan's voice explaining a strange behavior he had been recording in the cornfield. Something that started with the cows becoming disoriented, then dead birds appearing in perfect rows, and later, recordings of sounds that no one else heard. Sounds that seem to call him by name. Eleanor, skeptical and rational, thinks it's all just an exaggeration of a lonely rural mind. But there's something in Nathan's tone of voice that bothers her. It isn't fear, it's resignation. The silence of the farm begins to surround her. There are nights when she wakes up with the feeling that someone called her. And then, on the top shelf, she finds Nathan's final recording, hand-labeled in red ink. "Do not listen if you are alone. Heavy start, right family." If you've already felt that chill down your spine just imagining hearing your name in the dark, go ahead and leave a like down below to strengthen our mystery corner. And if you're new here, subscribe and stick around, because Nathan and Eleanor's story is just getting started, and things are about to get a whole lot stranger. The Blake farm has existed since 1889, carved into the heart of rural Nebraska, among rolling plains and cornfields that look like green oceans when viewed from above. Since childhood, Eleanor always had an ambiguous relationship with the place. She loved the vastness but feared the sound the wind made among the ears of corn. Nathan, on the contrary, felt like he was part of the land. He stayed when everyone else left, taking care of the property after their father's untimely death and their mother's mental decline. When she returns, everything is exactly the same, yet inexplicably heavier. The wooden house creaks during the night. The corn grows almost aggressively, swallowing the surroundings. In Nathan's old room, there are meticulous notes on sound patterns, moon positions, and harvest phases. He believed there was something in the sounds between the rows of corn, something alive, that moved when no one was looking. Eleanor tries to rationalize. She is a science teacher at a high school in Des Moines, and never made room for superstitions. But there is a growing unease when walking alone in the plantation. The farm dogs refuse to enter the cornfield after sunset. In the village, neighbors mutter. An old man at the gas station warns her unprompted. "If you hear your name, don't answer. That's how they get you." Eleanor laughs, but something in her stomach tightens. She begins to review the tapes Nathan left behind. Most are indistinct sounds, wind, static, the rustling of leaves, but in one specific recording, there is something clear. Her name, whispered twice. A distant voice, almost childlike. She listens at night, and in the silence that follows, it seems that something in the cornfield responds. Eleanor decides to visit the only person who seems to have mentioned the sound out loud. Marlene Givens, a 73-year-old neighbor who lives 2 miles from the Blake property. A widow and former war nurse known for her gruff temperament, Marlene lives with 6 cats and a collection of old radios stacked in the living room. It is she who claims, with disconcerting naturalness, the voice calls child, and sometimes it sings. During the conversation, Marlene shares that her grandson Billy, at age 9, heard his own name coming from the cornfield while playing alone. He came back mute, in shock. He never spoke again, never smiled again. 25 years later, he lives in a clinic, completely apathetic. The only word he has said since then was, "far away." She shows Eleanor a cassette tape. The audio is old, filled with noise and hiss, but between the poorly tuned radio tracks there is a crystal clear whisper. "Marlene?" The woman trembles. "That was the last time I heard my sister." The recording, she says, was made by chance while recording radio soap operas. The name came from the cornfield, where her sister Greta had disappeared decades before. They never found the body. Eleanor tries to maintain her skepticism, but something begins to crumble in her logic. Back at the farm, she decides to replicate the experiment. She positions a digital recorder in the center of the field and stays nearby, hidden. When she reviews the audio later, she nearly drops her phone. The recording clearly captures a soft, feminine voice saying, "Nathan." And then, like a hoarse echo, "Eleanor." In the attic, among boxes of junk and furniture covered in old sheets, Eleanor finds a locked drawer in Nathan's old desk. After forcing the lock, she discovers a set of black-covered notebooks, all dated and organized with obsessive meticulousness. The titles are unconventional. Call 03A, Answers 2.6, Night Patterns, The Voice and the Thread. She spends hours reading. The writings reveal a man who began as a curious observer, but gradually dived into something beyond logic. Nathan detailed recurring events, always at night, always with a clear sky, and always among the central rows of the plantation. He mapped the voices, indicating the exact spot where each name was whispered. There were patterns, and according to him, it wasn't random. One passage says, "It's not the cornfield. It's the space between the stalks. It's the void that speaks." Another passage mentions a disturbing hypothesis. The more time someone spends near the plantation, the more prone they become to hearing the voice. And even more. Nathan reports that in some cases, the voice called the names of people who weren't even there yet, as if it anticipated someone's arrival. Eleanor finds a torn page with just one sentence. "I answered last night." She freezes. Nathan's handwriting is shaky, different from the rest of the journal. At the end of one of the diaries, there is an envelope taped to the back cover, "For when you hear it too." Inside is a mini recorder, without batteries. She replaces them and presses play. Nathan's voice sounds hesitant. "If you are hearing this, then it spoke to you. And if it spoke, it's because it wants you to return to the center. Don't ignore it. Don't deny it. Because denying it is worse." That night, Eleanor dreams of rows of corn closing behind her like doors, and in the background, someone calls her name, but with her brother's voice. Guys, Nathan's journals really mess with your head, right? Imagine what Eleanor must be feeling. Before we follow what happened on the night of the first call, don't forget to turn on the notification bell. YouTube can be a bit weird sometimes, so by hitting that bell, you make sure it notifies you every time I post a new report like this one here on the channel. Eleanor is convinced that what took Nathan was not a simple hallucination. Following the journals, she decides to investigate personally, despite her fear. She chooses the next night, a clear, windless night, exactly as Nathan described in his notes. With a flashlight and her brother's voice recorder in her pocket, she walks to the edge of the cornfield. The silence is so deep she can hear her own heart beating. Carefully, she moves through the rows of corn, feeling the leaves cut her skin with an unsettling lightness. In the center of the plantation, she stops. Nathan's recording indicated this exact spot as the place where he heard his name. She waits, and waits. Minutes crawl by until suddenly the sound emerges. But it's not an ordinary sound. It is her name. Eleanor. But the voice, it's the voice of her deceased father. She freezes. The name sounds again, now closer, more intimate. As if someone were standing right behind her, but when she turns around, there is no one. She doesn't scream. She just runs. The corn leaves hit her face like whips. Upon leaving the plantation, trembling, she realizes the recorder in her pocket stopped working the exact moment the voice appeared. Back at the house, Eleanor reviews the file. The audio is silent, except for a hum at the end. When she turns up the volume, she hears something beneath the buzz, an almost imperceptible frequency. Her name, 3 times, whispered. And the most terrifying part, the last time her name is spoken, the voice isn't her father's, nor is it Nathan's. It is her own. 2 days after hearing her name among the rows, Eleanor notices something strange while looking out the kitchen window. There is an unusual patch in the center of the cornfield, something that wasn't there before. She walks out there during the day, and what she finds makes her stomach churn. On the ground, the corn stalks are flattened, forming a massive, perfectly symmetrical spiral with precise folds and intricate patterns. In the center of the design, there is a single broken ear of corn with burn marks at the base. It looks like pure carbon. She calls Charlie West, a local farmer and family friend, to see what could have caused it. Charlie examines it carefully and says that nothing there was made by wind, machines, or humans. He adds in a lower tone, "I saw something like this in 1987. My brother heard his name. He never came back." Terrified, Eleanor begins to record the phenomenon with drones, photos, and videos. But when she tries to email the files, the internet fails. The house's power flickers. When she restarts the computer, all the folders are empty. She feels a vibration in her pocket. Her phone restarted on its own. And on the home screen, like a ghost notification, the phrase appears, "No need to record. She knows you are here." That night, Eleanor dreams she is buried up to her neck, with corn growing around her at an accelerated pace. The sky is red, and someone walks across the plantation, calling names that aren't hers. But at the end, it whispers, "She survived for now." Upon waking, she finds dirt under her fingernails and corn marks on the soles of her feet. Eleanor decides to look for any other survivor who might have had contact with the voice. She scours old city records, obituaries, and newspaper clippings from the 1980s and 90s, until she finds a forgotten note in the local newspaper archive. Woman found in a catatonic state after disappearing for 3 days on her farm, claimed to hear the name of her deceased husband among the cornfields. Her name is Meredith Slater, now over 80 years old, living in a nursing home on the outskirts of Greenwood. Eleanor visits her. Meredith is silent, her eyes fixed on the window. But when Eleanor mentions Nathan Blake's name, she blinks and whispers, "Did he hear it too?" Slowly, Meredith speaks between pauses and tremors. She says the creature mimics voices, always of people we love or have lost, and that the sound never comes from just one place. It's as if it's all around you, but always inside your mind as well. They think it's a hallucination, but it's not. The thing calls, and if you answer, it follows you, even outside the cornfield. She shows her arm. There are circle-shaped scars, old burns. Meredith tells her that when she returned from the plantation, her own shadow seemed slower than she was. Sometimes, she would hear her name coming from inside mirrors, even while locked in her room. Before Eleanor leaves, Meredith hands her a yellowed slip of paper. It's written in shaky ink. You only hear your name if you're already on the list, and the list never fails. On the way out of the asylum, Eleanor's phone rings. No caller ID. When she answers, silence. Then, the same voice from that night in the cornfield. He is alive, but not whole. Eleanor hangs up, but the call continues. On the display, the name Nathan Blake appears. The phone explodes into static and goes dark. When it restarts, the contact list is empty. Eleanor decides to install thermal and infrared cameras in the cornfield. She spends 2 days without proper sleep, monitoring the files late into the night. On the 3rd night, one of the cameras captures something. A sudden movement, 140 feet from the house. Among the plants, a very thin, low silhouette, crawling close to the ground with arms and legs that are far too long. As if it had been assembled incorrectly, the figure stops and lifts its head. Although the face is in shadow, the frozen image shows the shape of a wide, open mouth, as if screaming without sound. The following dawn, Eleanor decides to go to the cornfield once more. She takes only a flashlight and the recorder. This time, She puts on headphones to capture sounds in real time. And then she hears it. Nathan. Eleanor. Daddy. Mommy. A sequence of voices from her childhood, each one more distorted than the last, like old tapes being rewound to their limit. She stops, takes a deep breath, and shouts, "Who's there?" The silence is total, but then a laugh emerges, and she herself answers her own question, with her own voice, exactly the same. She runs, stumbling over the stalks. Looking back, she sees something among the leaves. Not a face, but a black scarecrow mask with sewn eyes and an open mouth. The figure remains motionless, but the voice whispers in her ear, even from a distance. "Now you see me." Back at the house, Eleanor finds the recorder still on. The last audio segment is different. It's the sound of her own breathing. But she never gasped like that. It was someone else. Or something else. On the hallway mirror, there is a message written with a finger. "He was first. You are the last." After the second appearance, Eleanor tries to upload the captured images and audio to a secure cloud server, but everything begins to fail. The internet oscillates erratically, and the files disappear one by one. When she tries to transfer them via USB drive, the computer screen flickers, displays digital noise, and finally, her own face appears frozen on the screen, with eyes that are completely black. Desperate, she takes the external hard drive to a computer shop in another city. The technician, upon opening the data, frowns. The curious thing is, all the files seem to be here, but without sound, and without light. All the images are completely dark. He shows her one of the videos. Nothing can be seen. But when he manually increases the brightness, for just one frame, the silhouette of a figure appears among the corn, looking directly at the camera. It's not moving. But in the lower corner of the screen, a sequence of flashing numbers appears. The technician pauses the video. The sequence is a date, Eleanor's birth date. She asks to copy the frame, but the computer freezes. The screen goes dark. The case fan accelerates, and the monitor displays for 2 seconds what looks like a disfigured face, digitally distorted. Eleanor screams. The technician shuts everything down, pale. "Miss, this shouldn't be here. This isn't human." She returns home that same day, with a corrupted hard drive and a growing sense of being watched. During the night, while listening to the cassette recordings made by Nathan before he vanished, she notices a detail. In all the audios, before the whisper, there is the sound of something crawling, like claws sliding across dry leaves. When she pauses the tape, she realizes the sound continues, not on the recording, in the room. She holds her breath. The sound stops. Then she hears her name coming from the cornfield. Eleanor. But it's not an external voice. It's inside her head, and it's not calling, it's commanding. Eleanor decides to face the entity. She organizes the fragments of the investigation, spreading photos of Nathan, copies of audio, newspaper clippings, everything across the table. She writes a letter with details of the case, addressed to a journalist specializing in inexplicable phenomena. She leaves the letter sealed with his name, along with a note. "If I disappear, publish this. Please." Before sunset, she puts on a thick jacket, clips the recorder to her chest, and enters the cornfield. No wind, no sound of birds. The silence feels thick, viscous. As she walks, she notices that the environment doesn't seem to end, as if the cornfield had grown into itself. She begins to call out, "Nathan, if you're here, answer me." A whisper responds. But it's not Nathan. It's her father's voice, then her mother's, then her own. "Eleanor. Eleanor. Eleanor." The voices begin to overlap, creating a crooked chorus, as if a crowd were repeating her name, each in a different tone. She begins to cry, and her flashlight flickers. Then she sees it. The creature is in front of her, lying across the stalks, slowly rising. Its arms touch the ground, but its elbows bend backward. Its head is like a bag of sewn skin with holes for eyes, no visible mouth, but the sound still comes out, deep, continuous, as if played from inside an endless lung. "He is still here. You can see him." Eleanor screams and runs back, but the paths have changed. She no longer recognizes anything. The cornfield is no longer the same. The rows are infinite, and the sky seems lower. When she tries to mark the path with strips of cloth, they disappear. The body cam falls, and when she tries to pick it up, she sees her hand on the display. But the hand is motionless, as if it belongs to someone else. She recoils. She is being watched. Suddenly, a firm voice. "Eleanor, run!" It's Nathan. He appears between the rows, pale, dirty, eyes open too wide. But there's something wrong with his body. He is shaking all over, like a VHS image out of sync. She runs to him, but as she approaches, he whispers, "I am no longer me." And then he vanishes. Eleanor's body camera was found 2 weeks later, hanging from one of the scarecrows in the cornfield. The memory card was corrupted. Only an 11-second clip was recovered. The image shows the cornfield in silence, swaying slightly, until a figure crosses in the background, moving in reverse, as if walking backward, but with its head turned forward. In the final frame, a whisper is audible, almost imperceptible. But it's there. "You called me." The FBI did not get involved. The local police station filed it as a voluntary disappearance. But the town's oldest residents now avoid the dirt road after sunset. They say there's something in the air, a pressure, a smell of old iron and wet meat. The cornfield was burned by local authorities under the pretext of pest control. But 3 months later, it sprouted again. Denser, taller, and exactly the same. The channel of journalist David Krell, who received Eleanor's letter, published a video titled, "The Sound That Calls You by Name, a Real Case of Rural Haunting in the USA." The video went viral, but shortly after, David also disappeared. The last comment left on the video said, "It called for me too." The account was deleted minutes later. The Blake house remains empty. Every now and then, someone sees lights on at night, even though the power has been cut. Others swear they have heard a sound coming from the field, something between a whisper and the rustle of a crawling serpent. But there is something no one mentions out loud. Everyone who answers the call disappears, and everyone who ignores it dreams of their name being repeated until dawn. Some sleep with the light on. Others sleep with their eyes open. This ending for Eleanor was absolutely sinister, family. What did you think of that appearance by Nathan? Was it really him? Or was the entity just playing with her mind? For decades, the sound has echoed through the tall, dry rows of the field, claiming curious youths, wanderers, and even longtime residents. But when the recording crew set up their microphones that night, hoping to capture something inexplicable, the sound called to them one by one. Now, the audio files survive, but everyone who listened until the end has vanished. And if you keep watching, you might recognize that sound. Perhaps you'll hear your name. Family, I wanted to have a quick word with you. For every story I bring here, our team does a deep study, a technical dossier on the entity. We catalog everything: weaknesses, strengths, origins, and technical data. Usually we only use this internally to better understand the report and build this atmosphere for you. But thinking about always improving the channel, I had an idea. Would you like me to include this technical dossier at the end of every video? If you think this adds value, comment below, "I want the dossier." It all depends on you. If you've made it this far, tell me, what isolated place would you never enter at night? Maybe we'll investigate it in the next video. I also really want to know where you're listening to these stories from. What country, state, and city are you from? I want to see how far the whisper of the cornfield is reaching. And don't leave just yet. Check out the other videos on the channel. Each one is edited with a unique atmosphere to fully immerse you in the report. Thanks for everything, family. And you already know, if you hear your name in the silence, think twice before you answer. See you in the next video.